10 episodes into Nippon Sengoku and I'm offended. But before you write this off as a venting session, what I have to say is pretty logical, so just hear me out, okay? The points I'm making here genuinely deserves that word. Episode 1 of this show made me feel something. Misumi's wife is killed and he wept and then buried her. Before the story had technically even started, I was completely invested in this man. They had managed to, like for many others, gain my sympathy for him. And of course, that's what a powerful opening is supposed to do to you. But 10 episodes later, here's what I've come to understand. That death was never really for her. I know that sounds weird since she, died, but just listen. Misumi's wife was never a character in the story to begin with. Her existence was only made possible because the author needed a vessel to deliver something to Misumi. Once she fulfilled her mission, the story just arbitrarily packed her up and fired her away. Nippon Sengoku, a show I have genuine deep admiration for in multiple areas, made an intentional choice in that direction. And I want to talk about why that's the most disrespectful thing this show has done so far. Now, there's a concept I want you to have in mind for the entire video because it's going to be the backbone of everything I'm about to say and it will cause you to miss it. Something I learned in my frankly amateurish research is that in storytelling, there's a specific type of death known as a motivation death. I know, not a very original name. What it means is exactly what it sounds like. A character exists not as a person in the narrative but as a sort of conduit, specifically one designed to give the protagonist something to care about, to fight for, and or to carry. The moment that death lands emotionally on the audience, the character's job is done. The specific tell, i.e. the thing that separates a motivation death from a genuine character loss, is this question. Can you trace the exact trait or quality the protagonist receives from it? If you can draw a clean straight line from who she was to her death to who he becomes as a direct result, sadly what you're looking at is a transaction, not a tragedy as you might have been led to believe. How deceitful, I know. With Misumi's wife, I can draw that line in a single sentence. She told him he was smart and that the only thing he lacked was courage. She then died and as expected he found his courage. After that though, there was never a single mention of her anymore. Not once. I want you to actually think about how clean that is. She didn't exist to have her own story or to be grieved in any meaningful ongoing way after her passing, but just to give Misumi the one trait he was missing, courage. And the moment she did that, she was done. The story never planned for her existence beyond episode 1. She was just a checkbox you clear in the first episode so the actual story can begin. This is something I find extremely disrespectful. I mean, yes, she's just a character you created. That's why a lot of people see characters and stories. But from a personal perspective, I give so much value to these so-called characters. When I'm watching or reading a story, I'm thinking to myself, I'm viewing a person's life from an outside perspective. And it really, really offends me when these people are just treated like objects to be moved at the maker's will. The genuinely uncomfortable part of all this is that it worked. Episode 1 made me care about Misumi before he'd done a single thing to earn it. That's effective television, I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But effective and honest are two very different things, and I don't believe I need to tell you this. So we move into episode 2, episode 3, 4, 5, all through to 10. Again, I want you to think about what 10 episodes of a war story actually represents in terms of opportunity. This isn't a genre where grief can stay comfortably hidden. War stories are built on cost, on life lost, sacrifices made, people carrying their losses forward into every decision they make. If her death shaped Misumi, if she had any sort of influence on him, this is the exact setting where that eventually comes to light, where it bleeds into his hesitations, his choices, and the way he looks at certain kinds of loss in the people around him. 10 episodes of war is 10 episodes of open doors, and yet she doesn't walk through a single one. I keep notes on everything I watch. Some stories give me 25 entries across 6 episodes, things worth stopping and writing down because the story demanded it. Nippon Sengoku across 10 episodes has given me 4, one of which is her death in episode 1, which means 9 subsequent episodes, 9 episodes of war and grief and sacrifice constantly on display all around him, produced nothing worth writing down about her. Her absence is not just noticeable, at this point her absence is the point I'm trying to make. And here is where I need to be careful because I'm aware of how this sounds so far. Before this video becomes something it's not, let me tell you what Nippon Sengoku actually is, because you need to understand this before the indictment lands properly, and that indictment is heavier because of it. Episode 6 of this show had my entire body tense up. Soldiers I had never seen before, characters I had zero prior attachment to, defending the castle, and somehow the mere possibility of their deaths had me physically on edge. I was watching this, feeling my body tense, the adrenaline completely unfathomable. And the visual direction of this show, I said it in my notes and I'll say it again here, is the most unique thing I've seen since the Monogatari series. I know that sounds like glaze, but trust me, it's deserved. That's not a casual bar for me. It's one of my favorite stories of all time, and I wouldn't make such a comparison lightly. That just goes to show how seriously I take Nippon Sengoku. What that means is Nippon Sengoku is demonstrably capable of generating authentic emotional investment from almost nothing, from soldiers you've known for 5 minutes, in a conflict you just learned about. That capability is real, and episode 6 is proof of that, which means what happened with Misumi's wife was not a failure of ability. The author knows how to do this, they just choose not to apply that craft to her. And that distinction between couldn't and didn't is exactly where the offense comes from. Now, I want to still man the most obvious counter before I bury it, cause it's a fair one on the surface and I don't want to be accused of ignoring it. Misumi is established as a hyperlogical person from the very beginning of the story. He controls himself and he thinks clearly. Generally, he prioritizes the mission over his emotions, so expecting him to visibly fall apart over his wife or act irrationally in moments that remind him of her is unfair to his character. That's judging him for being exactly what the story established him to be. And look, I get that. At face value, that is pretty reasonable. If Misumi's defining trait, his ironclad emotional control, was established from episode 1 before her death, then her death did nothing to build that into him. His logic was already there. She didn't shape him into a controlled person, nor did she add any psychological texture to who he already was or complicate him in any direction, which means she never had much influence in him to begin with. She was always outside him as sort of credential, proof of surfing attached at the opening and then filed away the moment it served its purpose. And here's something that should make any defender of this writing think twice before speaking. If the logical person argument is correct, if Misumi is so emotionally controlled that his wife's death genuinely cannot influence a single decision he makes, then what was the need for a wife at all? If the grief can never visibly manifest, if it can never crack him or complicate anything, she added nothing to his character that wasn't already there. The logic defense doesn't protect the writing but rather indicts it more completely, because it means she was never necessary to this story, just useful for exactly one episode. Episode 10 is where this becomes impossible to argue around, and this is the part I really need you to pay attention and understand properly. In the course of fulfilling a military assignment, delivering a message to the Emperor, Misumi finds himself in the presence of Lord Tyra, the very man responsible for his wife's death.
Make me feel bad. His offense was the same as your wife's was.
Please take a while to think about what this moment actually represents. If grief lives anywhere in Misumi, if her loss had any significant fingerprint on who he actually is, it should surface here involuntarily. That's what grief does in the presence of its cause. It just shows up regardless of whether the timing is convenient for its bearer. That's how grief works in real people, and that's how honest character writing reflects it. The show gave us a stiffened face and a flashback, and then the mission just continued. In the presence of the person responsible for his wife's death, the actor with the composure of a man walking through a task list. Now, you can say that's a logical Misumi staying true to his nature, and I will say once again, then we are back to the trap. Because if 10 episodes and a face-to-face encounter with a man who killed her cannot produce a single reaction from him, then she never shaped him in any way, shape or form. She was just a fact about his past. The show technically acknowledged she exists with a stiffened face and a flashback, the bare minimum required to avoid the accusation, and then it moved on. It wasn't like Misumi was trying to mask his grief because the mission at hand was more important or anything. To me, the show was just ticking a box. Come argue with me about it if you want. The 10 episodes are right there. My anger here is quite obviously specific. It has nothing to do with whether she died or how early it happened. Death in war stories is the deal. That's the genre. I perfectly understand that. What I'm angry about is what her existence in this story reveals when you look at it honestly. She had a task to complete. She did so and then she was gone. And a show that can make you fear for soldiers you've known for 5 minutes, that demonstrably knows how to make you feel something real for someone, didn't think she deserved even a fraction of what it gave them. I don't see this as a failure in the writing. What it was a choice. And Saki Higashimachi deserved better than to be a choice.